You might have caught a bit of music. Anyway, so it's been a couple of weeks since I uploaded. I didn't upload last week because I was in Indianapolis for a gaming convention for GenCon. It was the 50th GenCon last week, and me and a bunch of friends went. If you watch this channel, you know that we're into games. We go every Tuesday to a local comic shop and play board games together. So a group of us got together and we went to Indianapolis last week to try out some new games and demo some games and, you know, see what's coming out and buy some stuff at good prices and the whole bit. And we had a good time. It was a long drive, like 9 hours, and I was driving this ridiculous van that felt like I was driving a sailboat. It was insane. So compared to this vehicle, it's so big. Anyway. But yeah, I had a good time, but I tell you, there's a lot of social justice in the gaming community. Not a lot, but I encountered my fair share. See, I wanted to go and avoid any politics whatsoever. This, the week before, there was the Charlottesville nonsense, and then, you know, the fallout from that, and then the fallout from Trump's comments on it, and the whole bit. And I just didn't want to have anything to do with politics. I didn't want to discuss it. I didn't even want it to enter my mind. But I couldn't help be thinking about it the whole time. And but I was just there. I just wanted to play some games and ignore that stuff. But that wasn't gonna happen. There was on one of the days we demoed a game called One Deck Dungeon by a publisher called Asmodi. I believe it's Asmodi. I think I got that right. Anyway, so now one of the group among us, she noticed. She said, "Hey, you know, I didn't expect I would notice, but I couldn't help but notice, and I'm kind of pissed off that I noticed that all the hero characters were female." I'm like, oh, well, you know, maybe the designer's a woman, right? And she decided she wanted to have all women represented. That's cool, whatever. Doesn't bother me. I want to know how well it plays. And when you look at the style, when we got there and I looked at the style of the art, it's kind of this sort of like generic, cartoony style. When you think of women in fantasy, you think of, you know, chainmail bikinis and, you know, buxom women with swords and stuff like that. But the designer decided to put in, you know, these female characters that don't fit that stereotype, which is cool. Okay, I get it. But it comes down to what Anita Sarkeesian calls basically guys with tits, right? So you have a barbarian character, and a barbarian character, apart from having the proportions of a female, looks exactly like a male barbarian. So I was like, okay, I get it. So you wanted to make it all women, but you want to take away any femininity or anything associated with being a woman in your design. Interesting choice. Anyway, so we sit down and we start going through instructions on how to play this game. And the bald-headed fart who was showing us how to play, saying, okay, well, if your character takes damage, you put a heart on your card. And I laughed and I said, "Ha, you said heart on." And the douchebag gets all upset. He's like, "No, I didn't. I said heart on. Heart on. I'll end this game right now." And I'm like, "It's just a joke, man." And he's like, "Ah, yeah, let's just get on and play." And I'm like, "You fucking douche." Anyway, so we play the game. I mean, it's not a bad game. It's not badly designed. It's a cooperative game. So of course it's a little bit more challenging. The threats are a little harder to face and that sort of thing. But we played it for about an hour or so. And then at the end he goes, "So did you notice that all the hero characters are female?" And the buddy I'm playing with, he's like, "Yeah, no, it never even entered my mind." I'm like, "Yeah, I did notice that. I was wondering why." And he says, "Well, you know, the game designer, he received a lot of pushback on this, but you know, he held his ground and he decided that he wanted to make all the characters female, because, you know, he feels women need to be represented in gaming and women need to be represented in fantasy. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And I start rifling through the cards, right? And I'm looking at all the enemy cards, and any enemy card that had a humanoid shape was distinctly male. So I'm like, well, hey, you know what? Not all the characters are female. Look, here's some males. But it just, I was like, seriously? You want to inject your politics into your game? That's fine, but you know what? You may want to be a little bit more subtle about it. You're gonna alienate customers. Some people are gonna see the identity politics injected into your game and be turned off by it. Some people are gonna look at the poor design and go, this isn't very inspiring. I don't really want to play this game. And further still, some women, when they find out that the designer is actually a guy, are gonna feel pandered to. So he points out the designer, and it's this, you know, this balding, long hair hippie guy with a beard and a purple shirt. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's him. And I'm like, he's such a woke ally. And I can't help but think he's one of those allies with ulterior motives. You know, he feels the need to broadcast how woke he is for the express purpose of, you know, gaining the attention of females. Most women, my wife I talked to, she's like, yeah, why? You want to do that's fine, but why make a point of it? You know, at one point you're pandering, and people don't like to be pandered to. So, I mean, kudos for him. The guy made a game and got it published. I don't know if this is his first game or not, but you know, it's more than I've done. I've designed games but never got them published, so good for him. It's just, I gotta question how much of his focus was on making a good game, and how much of his focus was on, you know, making sure he broadcast to everybody how much of a feminist he is. Anyway. And then beyond that, on the last day, we took a shuttle from our off-site parking to the convention center. And the guy driving the shuttle, just all of a sudden out of nowhere, starts talking about how his roller derby team had these shirts made for charity. And the shirts say silence is violence. And white silence is violence. And I'm standing there on the bus, because it's packed full, and I'm like, dude, who the fuck are you talking to? First off, what makes you think anybody's going to agree with your position? And second, why do you think we fucking care? I tell you, you know, the virtue signaling was just off the hook in Indianapolis this past weekend. Yeah. And one of the things that kind of irked me about the whole GenCon, I don't think we're going to go again, because we've done it 3 times now. We might do PAX next year. But one of the things that kind of irked me was it was the 50th GenCon, and there was no Dungeons and Dragons event. There was no Wizards of the Coast. I mean, apart from Magic, there was Magic tournaments for sure, but there was no Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, they had a big thing 2 years ago, but last year there was nothing, and then this year there was nothing as well. And this is the 50th GenCon. And Dungeons and Dragons has been a big part of GenCon for a long time. So I was a little irked by that. And now, a month or so ago, I follow D&D on Facebook, and they made a point of saying, hey, this is the first year that we're going to be having a float in Seattle Pride Parade. And you know, they did the rainbow flag filter on their profile pic for the Pride Month. And I made a comment on it. I'm like, they could do what they want, but you know, why the need to again broadcast and inject this into your product, which has nothing to do with, you know, gay identity or anything like that. You make games, right? And I know they're showing that they're, you know, a good corporate citizen. But I gotta wonder, where were they 20 years ago? D&D's been around a long time. You know, now that it's fashionable, and now that it's, you know, gays are like a celebrated class in Western civilization and a protected class. Now they're saying we're part of the pride parade. Well, yeah, big fucking deal. Where were you 20 years ago? Anyway, 20 years ago they were at GenCon, I bet. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth at all the virtue signaling going on, and people doing it in lieu of making good business decisions for their business. I mean, there were 70,000 people at GenCon this year. D&D was nowhere to be found. And they could have been there and held events, and they would have brought new people into the hobby. People who had never played before but probably always wondered. I just think it was a bad decision to decide that they were going to have a presence at Seattle Pride, but not have a presence at GenCon on the 50th anniversary of GenCon. But hey, that's just me. Who the hell am I, right? I think a business should steer clear of politics, identity or otherwise, and just simply say, we make games, and we make games for people who like to play games, and we don't care what your orientation is, we don't care what your politics are, we don't care where you come from, we don't care what language you speak. We make games, and that's it. I think they do better to do that. I think they'd have wider appeal than trying to broadcast their virtuousness and let everyone know that they're a good, nice corporate citizen. Anyway, that's my rant on my GenCon experience. But apart from that, I had a great time. Played a lot of cool games. So, thanks very much for watching.